What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions podcast. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. We're back, and we're back as division champs after Christmas. Hope you guys are all having a great holiday. Merry Christmas to everybody. Lions did it. First time since 93. They win the division. Scott, my man, how are you?
I'm great. Doing good, man. That was a wild game. Just it was closer than I think it needed to be, but I don't know how you were feeling on that final drive, but man, when Melifonwu picked that pass off.
Yeah. I about had a stroke, I think, during the game, and I'm not saying that to be like funny. I think I might have suffered something because I was on.
It broke,
dude. I was at my in-laws' house. We're watching the game. I was there on Thanksgiving. We watched the game. They lost, obviously, to the Packers, and I had told my wife, I said, if the Lions lose, just so we're clear, I'm never watching another game at your parents' house because they always lose. So obviously the final drive's happening. I get on all fours and I tell my father-in-law, and I'm like, dude, if they lose, I'm never coming over here to watch another Lions game. And he's like, you're attacking me. And then the pick happened. I jumped up and down. I screamed in his face. I was like, I'm watching every game here, but like I must have got up too fast.
Oh my God.
I think I got up too fast and my body like shut down. Like my left arm went numb and I just like hit the ground and I was like, whoa. But it was awesome. It was awesome. Something I've never seen before that I can remember.
Yeah. It is definitely memorable, but they are not done. Right?
They are not. It's interesting because they kind of control their own destiny here, right? Like if they win out, they get a little bit of luck. They potentially are the 1 seed. If they win out, it looks like they're going to be the 2 seed, which would give them 2 home playoff games if everything goes right.
Yeah.
But it's just great. They win 30-24. They win the North. Let's just talk briefly about this one. I don't know how much detail we want to get into on it, but they pick off Nick Mullins 4 times, and I felt like you pick him off, you should have won by more than 6. That's one thing that I didn't like, but I love that in the trenches, the Lions.
Should have been 5 times, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it should have been. And there should have been a potential fumble recovery there. I think they overturned and those types of things. But the Lions had 257 yards 257 yards in the air, 143 yards on the ground. The Vikings only had 17 yards on the ground. This run defense, even without Aleem McNeil, is still damn near dominant on every aspect. But what did you take away from this game offensively, defensively?
So it was 2 separate things. It was Justin Jefferson is ridiculous. We know this. That was the fear going into that game. Hawkinson was really good too until he got hurt. That's unfortunate for him. That's a brutal injury.
Yeah.
They showed. I thought they would get a little more production out of their D line with O'Neal being the right tackle being out. They didn't. And Mullins had a lot of time to throw, but that's also a problem for Mullins because he is. We talked about this in the last week. I hope he is definitely going to give the other team opportunities to make plays on the ball. He just does.
Yeah.
And you saw that in that game. But so, I mean, you have some defensive woes where they look like they just can't get off the field, and Minnesota kind of did whatever, in some ways, whatever they wanted to do offensively on the Lions defense. But then Kirby Joseph comes alive and you see him making the plays that we've expected for a few weeks. And that has a lot to do with the kind of throws that Mullins wants to make, those deep shots where he puts a lot of air under the ball because he doesn't have great arm strength, and Kirby can get from Kirby Joseph can get from midfield to the sideline on those kind of plays. But offensively, I thought the Lions looked great in doing the things that they wanted to do. Gibbs looks as dynamic as you could want for a year one player. Amon-Ra looked really good. They didn't need to do a ton in that way. You know what I mean? Like their offense it did just enough to get them the win.
Yeah.
But their running game was pretty explosive. So it was good to see all that, but it still was, there was moments where it was just way too close for any kind of comfort, but it was for the division. So, it's kind of to be expected. Minnesota gave them everything they could want. It was a great win. It was really cool to see it. But like I said, they're not done. So we're going to kind of focus on what's going to happen going forward. But, really good things on offense, some alarming things on defense. But some of that to me is just a Justin Jefferson thing. Like he's just uncoverable. So,
right.
Kudos. Hey, nice play. We're moving on. What'd you see?
No, I'm with you on the Jefferson thing. I mean, it's a little disappointing to see KJ Osborne come to life a little bit once they took, once Addison got hurt and then Hawkinson got hurt. It was kind of like, okay, you got to cover one guy. And Osborne just found like soft spots in the coverage, whether it was on the mesh stuff or deep crosser or whatever. And he had that big gain that's essentially set up the interception of Melifonwu to seal the game. But, offensively, I love seeing the usage for JMO. I mean, he's got 13 targets in the last 2 weeks, tons of production. And we've talked about that for the last several weeks, that his time is coming. He's doing the little things and he's starting to come to life. And I feel like if when we get into the Cowboy stuff later, like if there's going to be an X factor in the game, I know Gibbs and Montgomery in the run game is going to be very important in that game. But I genuinely believe with St. Brown going to draw so much attention from Diggs and stuff like that, there's going to be a big focus, I think, for JMO to find spots in this game against the Cowboys coming up and probably down the line here, especially as we get into the playoffs. So his usage has been huge. And I know Goff has underthrown some to him, but it does just feel like they're getting close to a big play to JMO for a big score.
Is Diggs in at all? I mean, it's isn't he hurt? Is he hurt?
He is hurt. I just don't know how that's all going to again, they're so banged up in Dallas. It's following their injury report is tough. So, I mean, we're going to get it. It's a good thing. Yeah. It's a good thing. They're banged up on their offensive line. Tyron Smith's probably not going to play. Diggs is questionable. So, we'll see. But
we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll see. But no, the ground game is just so important. We talked about this a couple weeks ago against the Bears. Commit to the ground game. The Lions, I feel like, can get 4 to 5 yards a pop, and they've done it in back-to-back weeks. The Broncos, now the Vikings. I think that they can do this against the Cowboys. But I love seeing this win. You mentioned the defensive stuff. They did a good job, finding ways to kind of keep Hutch away from plays. They ran away from him a lot, but he did have 4 quarterback hits. Brian Branch made some mistakes in this game. He did get called for kind of a ticky-tack foul, but
he also made some plays too, though.
Yeah, had a big interception. And, it just defensively, they have like this bend, don't break mentality. And they're finding ways to use the speed defensively that they have with Melifonwu, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, and getting those guys into blitz and things like that. Melifonwu, 2 sacks in this game as well. So I love seeing that stuff. They got aggressive. It led to some turnovers. And, there's a lot of bad quarterbacks playing in the NFL right now. There's a chance that you could play 1 or 2 of them along the stretch here to close out the season. And in the playoffs, find ways to attack those guys and be aggressive those guys. They did that against Nick Mullins. We'll see what they can do against Dak, but love the win. Love seeing what we got. It's just crazy. NFC North, I never thought we'd see it.
It is wild to think about that with 2 weeks left. The Lions are in a situation where, whatever happens this week, and this is a tough matchup, but you may have nothing to play for in week 18.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, there may be nothing to play for.
Yeah.
So it's nuts to think about that this team might be able to rest some players. Maybe Hendon Hooker sees some time. I would hope.
Yep.
That to me is super exciting to think about. Like, this team's done such a good job, overall. Couple stinkers here and there, but still really good season to the point where there's nothing to play for in week 18. So we get to see some of the future kind of stuff. Be fun to watch. That'd be a fun watch.
Yeah. I will say this, week 18, I would be telling Craig Reynolds, buckle up. You're about to take the bulk of the carries.
Yes.
So that's what I would be considering if I was Detroit for week 18. And I know we don't look ahead here, but I mean, that's just, you're right. Yeah, you're right though. They have an opportunity, depending on what happens, you can rest some guys. And I mean, I don't know. I think you got to come into the mindset, we got to win out. Let's beat the Cowboys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you go into Dallas and you beat Dallas this week, then there is no resting anybody, because you're playing in week 18 for very important things.
Yeah.
We'll get into it, but this has been the one game on the schedule that I have for the entire season. I've just crossed it out and dismissed it as even a possibility in my mind. And that's on me. And I'll own all that, but that's just where I am with it. Like, this is a tough matchup. I remember the last time they played Dallas, it was just like, it was brutal.
Yeah.
The pressure they brought to Goff and how he didn't respond to it real well. It's kind of what I'm expecting in this matchup, but there's reasons to be hopeful. So, this will be interesting.
Yeah. No, yeah, we're going to jump more into the Cowboys stuff. Before we do, we still got our Player of the Week powered by Restore, as well as the Lions playoff scenarios. The way it sits right now, just on ESPN, they've got an NFL playoff machine. San Francisco has a first round bye currently. The Eagles are the 2 seed against Seattle, who is the 7th seed. That would be the last team to get into the playoffs. Detroit is the 3 seed, and the nightmare is the Los Angeles Rams with Matthew Stafford come to town as the 6th seed. That's the way ESPN's got it projected right now. And then the Buccaneers are the 4 seed in the NFC South, playing against the Dallas Cowboys, who's the 5th seed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's going to be the playoffs. I mean, I don't think anybody else in the NFC is going to get in. Arizona's not getting in. I don't think Atlanta's getting in. New Orleans done. I don't think Green Bay or Minnesota's getting in. Minnesota, they don't even know who their quarterback's going to be for the next 2 weeks.
Who are they playing this week?
Minnesota?
Yeah.
Green Bay.
So if Minnesota beats Green Bay and you kind of hand them a win in week 18, maybe you get to play them in the first week of the playoffs, maybe?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, you got to beat Green Bay, right? I mean, you have to beat them this week. And Green Bay's kind of falling apart. I mean, they were trending in the right direction. They look like a team a few weeks back that it was like, after they beat us, it was like, man, like this team is starting to come together. But they just suspended Jair Alexander for a game.
That's a crazy thing too, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what happened. He came out on the coin toss.
So it sounds like he's had some off the field, like really weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he hasn't been the best teammate in their locker room, very volatile. And decided, hey, man, we're in my hometown and I'm going out there to call the coin toss. And you can see how that would piss off a head coach, right? Yeah. And he just was like, yeah, that's what I did. It's cool. Bizarre.
Very bizarre.
I know that there are NFL people who are very, very insistent that he has played his last down in Green Bay, period. It's a strange thing because he's a really good player.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he's burned some bridges there and he is not coming back. So we'll see. I mean, time has a way of mending all these things. Yeah. But, if what is out there is true, he may not play for Green Bay ever again.
Man, well,
and whatever that's worth, who knows?
Congratulations to him. He's a future Pittsburgh Steeler. Congratulations.
Sure. See ya.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's the playoff scenario, the way it sits right now. 2 weeks left. Again, if Detroit, they win out, there's a chance they're the 1 seed. I would assume they're more of the 2 seed, which if they end up playing Seattle, I guess that's not the worst case scenario. Or you mentioned Minnesota.
Yeah. I like the idea of having, I mean, it's nothing, this isn't earth shattering stuff, but the idea of playing inside in the second week of the play. I mean, you have to win. So, it doesn't matter if you can't win in the first round of the playoffs, but if you're the 2 seed and you get Seattle, it's not a great matchup for them. But still, you get Seattle at home, Ford Field should be rocking. But the nice thing is that the following week you're at home too. Mm-hmm. The worst possible scenario is to have to travel to a place like Philly in round 2.
Yeah.
And play outdoors, which is it's not a great situation. Whether or not we think Philly's any good or not, it doesn't change that it could be ugly weather, which is problematic for this team. But, so I think that first and foremost, it would be getting home games. Secondarily, it's about staying inside. And then the worst possible scenario is having to travel outdoors, but you still have to win that week 1 matchup. So we're getting, that's a little, we'll get to that when we get there. The nice thing is that we're going to get there this year. So, it's exciting stuff.
Well, and I'll say this, and I'll kind of put a bow on it with my take on the playoffs and just whoever they play. For me, the nightmare is Matthew Stafford coming to town and torching us. But like, when you look at it, just the way it's been going in recent weeks, every single team has their flaws. And Philadelphia, the defense is atrocious. They can make teams like with Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito look okay.
Yeah.
And those are bad offenses. And then they don't look right offensively, but you look at San Francisco, they're starting to get banged up. Whether it's in the defensive line group, some of their linebackers, Greenlaw, it's like every game he gets banged up. But Brock Purdy, he's great quarterback, potential MVP this year, but he has up and down performances. And if he has a 2 or 3 turnover game, they're very beatable.
They are. And if they lose a guy like Debo, all bets are off with that offense.
Yeah, no. And I mean, you look at Tampa Bay. I mean, we beat Tampa Bay earlier this year. Their offense has come together a little bit, but you can beat their defense.
Yeah.
And if you can just, I think, outpound the rock on them, you beat them. Dallas, I think, kind of the same thing. If you can run the football against Dallas, I think you can beat them.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that's the identity of the Lions. That's a benefit for them going into the playoffs. They have to commit to it and not come out on, 1st and 10 and start slinging it around like Jared Goff is Joe Montana out there.
Yeah.
Just trust the ground game, establish that. And I think the Lions can have a good push here in the playoffs, and we'll see how it goes. You get hot at the right time.
Yeah. I mean, that was the nice thing about, where they were a few weeks ago is they were seriously slumping. So, you're going to be an ascending team as you work your way into these last couple of games, and all bets are off, once the playoffs start.
Right. Yeah. Well, sorry, I was playing with the playoff machine. My bad. I was clicking buttons, and the Lions all of a sudden became the 1 seed. So we'll see.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into the play of the week that is powered by Restore Hyper Wellness. You guys, you've heard me talk about them the last couple of weeks, and maybe you haven't, but maybe you're an athlete, maybe you've got kids like myself or Scott, or maybe you're just, starting the new year trying to get back into the gym and you're not recovering the way you used to, or your kids aren't recovering after playing multiple sports. But you know what? I got a solution for you. Go check out Restore Hyper Wellness here in Northville, Michigan, or Birmingham, Michigan. My son and I, we both go. We love it. He's a 3-sport athlete. I'm in the gym 3 to 4 times a week, and we get our bodies right by visiting Restore. They've got everything you need, from compressions to cryotherapy, even some specialty services such as an IV drip. and those types of things. But just after one visit, I felt better and have been hooked ever since. They've got a ton of special holiday offers still right now, so go check them out. Get a family member, a friend, even yourself, the service you need to restore your body. Tell them I sent you from the Detroit Lions podcast so they can get you taken care of and they can get you back to doing more of what you love. So don't wait around. Go check out Restore Hyper Wellness now. And you can check them out over at restore.com as well. So play of the week. I don't know if you want to go first. I can go first. Doesn't matter.
You go first.
All right. Well, I'm going to go early in the game. I'm going to go with Brian Branch. I mean, there's a lot of big plays in this game, from the Melifonwu pick to some Gibbs runs to some big pass plays to JMO and St. Brown. But I'm going to go with this specific play. It was 4th and 2 on the Detroit 40. The previous drive, Brian Branch got a penalty, essentially made a mistake on a play, and he got flagged for it. And he rebounded well on this 4th and 2. He was kind of underneath the intended target, and he jumped the route and made a great interception. And a lot of people, just from Twitter comments and even where I was at watching the game with family, they were like, why did he pick that off? He should have knocked it down. And it's like, you get caught up in the moment. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're taking the pick every single time if you're a young player. But it was a great play by him, and I think it helped him restore some confidence, but it was the first of many turnovers on the day. And I think them getting that helped set some of the tone for what they wanted to do defensively. And I mean, it stopped the drive. Had he have slipped or had he not been there, that was a first down, potential touchdown. So it was a big play, and the Lions came out and punted afterwards. But it was just, I thought, a big play, and Brian Branch has done a phenomenal job, whether he's playing as a single high safety, dual safety responsibilities, or just playing over the slot. His ability in the box is a big plus for this team, and I'm intrigued with what they do moving forward with Branch, Kirby Joseph, Gardner Johnson, Melifonwu, maybe even Tracy Walker. They're getting back to what we thought they were going to be defensively when we started the year. But I think Brian Branch has just been so consistent for big plays week in and week out that I just wanted to highlight him here as we do the play of the week powered by Restore. So what do you got?
Well, there's a lot, like you mentioned. Melifonwu had a couple of sacks in this game, which were, it's always good to see that. He had the obvious. It's one of the plays that the pick at the end of the game was the, you could exhale. It's good stuff. But to me, looking at this and seeing what they were doing with their running game, the Gibbs run on 4th and 1, where he jukes out the corner, who kind of stepping up to make a tackle, and he's already got the first down. But it's that. The Lions have run for Gibbs is at like 5.7 yards per carry, but at any given time, he is going to bust one off for 30 or 40 yards or whatever it is. And he's just got that elusive electric ability to make a guy miss at top speed. And he did in this game. And it was a 4th and 1 play. It's a huge play. It was just a pretty, conventional run where he was in, he set back behind Goff, and they handed it to him. And he ran it, on the left side of the between the tackles, and he's quick enough to get on top of Harrison Smith in the box. Smith doesn't touch him, and then he's got that stutter sort of. It wasn't like a dead leg kind of a thing, but it was so quick, the cut from inside to outside, that the corner stepping up on him literally just kind of flies by him and falls almost on his face.
Yeah,
as Gibbs is running by him. And it's like that kind of stuff is fun to watch, but it's also, from an offensive standpoint, the idea that you can do that on 4th and 1 and not settle for like a 1.5 yard gain, which is what most teams do on 4th. Let's just get the yard and a half and move the chains. No, they're swinging for the fences on some of these running plays. Yeah. And that's the exciting thing, is that it's almost like they threw a vertical shot there. Where they wanted one of their playmakers to get the ball in his hands and make a play, and it ended up being a huge gain. And I just think there's the dynamic nature of what they can do running the ball is on display there. It's 4th and 1. they want him, the way they block that up, they want him in space at the second level, and he's there so fast that it's just hard for defenses to handle that kind of stuff. So that one was eye-opening for me. It was good.
Yeah, no, it's a great play. And there's a lot of great plays in this game with what they were able to do. It was awesome. So another strong performance offensively, still some great highlights defensively, regardless of some of the things Mullins was able to do. It was a great win. Lions clinched the division, and those were the plays of the week powered by Restore. Again, check them out over at restore.com, or just go to Northville, Michigan or Birmingham, Michigan and check out Restore Hyper Wellness. So I got to do something. I got to go backwards for a second. I did not realize this playoff machine, and we'll get into the Cowboy stuff, but I want to have fun for a minute.
Yeah, go.
I need to spitball the games of week 17 of the NFC, and I need you to pick some winners here and where we can talk this out. Again, it'd be fun, nothing too crazy. Lions playing Dallas. Who do we got winning this one? You like Dallas, right?
I mean, I think Dallas is going to win this game, but I think for the point of the exercise you're doing, let's say Detroit has to win, so Detroit wins.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think they're locked into the 3 seed, and that's just kind of where they are.
Right. Atlanta at Chicago. I like Chicago personally.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Carolina doesn't matter. Rams, Giants, got to go Rams, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Cardinals, Eagles at Philly. I think Philly gets back on track here.
Yep.
Saints at Tampa. I like Tampa. They're at home.
Yep.
Derek Carr can go fly a kite. San Francisco at Commanders. San Francisco Commanders are a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Steelers at Seattle. This one's tough.
Oh,
I personally like Pittsburgh. I think defensively they're a little bit better, and I don't know if Geno's going to play or not, but the way that their offense has been going, they've become really one-dimensional, I feel like, in Seattle. They've gone away from running the football.
I think if Geno plays, Seattle wins. If not, maybe Pittsburgh gives them a gain. I have a hard time with Mason Rudolph and just kind of buying it. I just do.
We'll go Seattle. No big deal. And then lastly for week 17, Green Bay at Minnesota.
Minnesota.
All right. So then now week 18, real quick. So after week 17, it's got the Rams at the 7 seed, Philly's the 3 seed, Detroit's the 2, San Francisco's the 1, Seattle's the 6, and Dallas and Tampa are 4 and 5. So week 18 is Seattle at Arizona. Seattle. Tampa at Carolina.
Tampa.
Minnesota at Detroit. Going to go Detroit. Bears at Green Bay.
Green Bay.
Yep. Falcons at Saints.
Saints.
And Philly at the Giants.
Philly.
Rams at San Francisco.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm
gonna say the Rams.
Okay, let's pick the Rams. I know what's gonna happen.
And Dallas at Washington.
Dallas.
Well, Lions get the 1 seed if all that happens.
Yeah. Yes.
So again, they control their destiny.
We haven't really played anything crazy out with the exception of that the Rams 49ers game, but the Lions need to win this week. To me, it's the Lions need to win this week, and they need the Rams to beat the 49ers in week 18.
Yeah.
And you're the 1 seed.
Yeah. Well, if the Lions want to put pressure on everybody else, they win this week.
Yeah.
Because now nobody can rest starters if they want to get to where they want to go.
Yeah.
And it's that simple.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. This is the week where you have to come out of this week with a win if you want to me, you're not going to finish higher than the 3 seed if you lose this week.
Right.
Just that's where it is.
Dude, it's crazy. That is so crazy. The Lions can be a 1 seed. That is crazy.
Yeah.
You never know, guys. You never know.
Yeah.
Because it goes all kind of ways. But all right, Cowboys, Lions, we got to go to Dallas. before we get into it, I got to tell you guys, you got to rate, review, and subscribe to the Detroit Lions podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other podcast platforms. Always appreciate the support. And of course, find us on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft, at Bischoff_Scott. So Cowboys, Lions, I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about it, but you don't feel I think you feel confident, but you just kind of feel like on paper, this is a Dallas win. And I agree with you.
This is the silliness of bias, right? Like, I have looked at this game as an easy loss for them for months. I've ignored everything else to this point. It's just in my brain, whatever this thing is, easy loss. But Dallas has not played well the last month, and they've been exposed by teams that run the ball well. Let me rephrase that. They've been exposed by teams that have determined to run the ball, which has led to very productive performances for those teams. Like the Buffalo game is one where I wouldn't say Buffalo's good at running the ball, but they were that day. Mm-hmm. And it was because Dallas just made no changes to what they were doing defensively. And Buffalo's interior offensive linemen were able to move Dallas's defensive tackles out of their gaps pretty easily, forcing their linebackers to run into open space and take perfect angles, which they weren't doing. Mm-hmm. And now you're at the second level in space, and you're making guys miss, and it's easy, So, I look at that, and I look at the way Dallas has defended the run the last couple weeks, and I think the Lions have an opportunity to do some good things. But then I look at the injury report, and I think to myself, that CeeDee Lamb's going to get his. He just is. There's nothing, it's the Justin Jefferson kind of thing. Like, he's going to do what he's going to do.
Yeah.
But, their offense is different when they miss their pieces on their offensive line. Zach Martin goes out, and that offensive line that offense looks completely inefficient, and Dak looks, panicky. Mm-hmm. All that stuff. You may be missing Tyron Smith. Zach Martin's banged up. There's a lot of stuff going on with their injury report that makes me think good things about what could potentially be for the Lions this week. So as much as I've looked at it as if it's a loss, and I still think it's gonna, this is a tough game for them. It just is. And maybe there's a little bit of remembering what it looked like the last time these teams played and what Goff looked like. Right. How panicked he was. And he just didn't handle pressure real well at all. But the Lions can run the ball much more effectively than they did in the past. And they can bust off big plays running the ball too. So, we gotta consider that. So, as much as I've dismissed this game the entire season as a loss, it's one of those things where I'm really interested to see what the Lions choose to do and how they go about, what they're going to do on offense.
Right. No, I'm with you. And I misspoke earlier. I don't know why I said Trayvon Diggs. I meant Deron Bland, the guy that's got 8 interceptions.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, like, if they can find a way to kind of keep him away, then perfect. Because I feel like
keep away with if he wants to take away St. Brown, he's not going to take him away fully, but cool. That's fine.
Right.
No.
Yeah, no. And I think that's the key. But the injuries are just, they're stacking up. Like we talked about, Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, these guys are on the injury report. Jonathan Hankins, their big defensive tackle, Malik Hooker, their safety. He's been limited, but he practiced fully yesterday. So we'll see. I mean, these guys they're banged up and they're beatable though. And I like that you mentioned CeeDee Lamb. He's going to get his, no doubt about it. But can you just limit the big spots, the big gains that go for touchdowns? If you can bend, not break, you hold them to 3 points, you hold them to going forward on 4th and 5 from the 30. Perfect. But
yeah, and I don't think Dallas runs it effectively to where that's going to give you issues either. So,
No.
you know,
Yeah, no, I mean, offensively, they split pretty well between under center and shotgun. They run a lot of gap stuff more so than zone stuff. So, they're going to try to establish Tony Pollard, but as we've shown in recent weeks, we can shut down running backs, and we do a really good job with it. They run a lot of play action at Dallas. They run it 32% of the time play action, second most in the NFL. So if you can limit Tony Pollard, the play action stuff doesn't really work. But you're going to have CeeDee Lamb on deep overs, in breaking routes, those dig patterns, things like that. So he's going to get his. But I think for Detroit, it's very simple. Just establish the run, use Gibbs and Montgomery effectively, find ways to get JMO the ball, specifically in space, run away from Micah Parsons. I think you're okay.
Yes.
I think you're okay if you do those things. Sam Laporta had kind of an off week last week, was really shut down by Harrison Smith pretty well, but I think he can get back on track here. So, this team the Cowboys are beatable. They are banged up. The last couple of weeks, they've shown that, hey, as good of a team as they are, they've been exposed the last 2 weeks against some very good football teams like the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. And we know those are on the road. They struggle on the road. They've proven that. But Detroit, indoors, there's no weather here that affects Detroit by any means. So
no. And it's, I know that Decker is banged up, so that's a potential problem for Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
But I would, we talked about this earlier. I think that a Decker injury is less problematic than a Ragnow injury to this or miss, I guess. If Decker misses this game, I think their fix is a little easier than it is missing an interior guy. So I think you're okay there. I mean, obviously you don't want him to miss, but no, I mean, the Lions are in a good position here, but it's always good to be able to control your fate, right? So if you want to be a 2 seed and get multiple home playoff games, it's right there for you. You just win this week.
Right.
That's it. It's easier said than done, but this is the week that you have. This will be the most important game they play all year. I know last week was a huge game. It gave them the NFC North title, but going forward, everything they do is for bigger things. And if they want to make a run in the playoffs, being at home might be kind of important to that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I love that Detroit is committed to running the football in recent weeks. It's got them up to 141 rushing yards on average per game, which is third highest in the NFL. Dallas is down there at 115. So, like we kind of said, like they get away from running the football. Tony Pollard can be effective, but they like to use him in the quick passing game, swing patterns and screens and those types of things. That's more of their run game. I mean, that's what Purdue did in college at the college level. I think Dallas kind of does it the same way, and other teams do it too. So it works, but Detroit, I think they have some aggressive defenders there. Branch, Melifonwu, some of these guys are stepping up. Sutton, and they can play that screen game pretty well if they try to get them out in space like Lamb or Pollard.
You mentioned the screen game because it's something the Lions haven't done all that much. But okay, if you want to stop a defensive line from its aggressive nature, what is the one way you do that?
You blitz.
Screens. No, I mean on offense. Like, if you're worried about Dallas's DNs and their D line, just pinning its ears back and just roaring off the edge. What is one way you slow that down?
You throw a screen in there.
This could be one of those games where Gibbs catches 6 or 8 passes and busts one on top of his rushing stuff. Where, I know Gibbs has been great the last couple games, but there's more to there. Like they haven't fully utilized him. They did for a couple games where they threw them the ball a lot,
right?
But they've kind of gotten away from that. Where this might be one of those matchups where they deem it absolutely necessary to get the ball to him in the screen game, which will kind of slow down Parsons and company. Yeah. This is why this game is going to be kind of fascinating. What do the Lions do to mitigate what Dallas does on defense? So, we'll see. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, no, and Dallas runs dime 70% of the time. It's the most in the NFL. So maybe they break away from that tendency. I'd be curious, though, because I don't know if their personnel necessarily fits running more of a base or a nickel. So with that many DBs on the field, you're talking 5 or 6 DBs at a time. The Lions are going to be able to, I think, get the screen, like you mentioned, screen game. That's a great point. I think you get the ground game. I'm committed to that. I am team establish the run. I am old school like that. Run the football,
well, especially if they have a smaller personnel, grouping on the field for sure.
Yeah, and again, there's more speed on the field, so you have to honor that. But again, we talk about this week in and week out. They have the players to win in space. St. Brown, Laporta, even JMO, as we've seen, Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, and they finally did it. They did the 11 personnel that I asked for a week ago with the 3 receivers of Raymond, Williams, and St. Brown with Laporta and Gibbs. So it was great to finally see that package. I would love to see more of that. That's more speed. That's a better skill set that I think fits to try to beat a team like Dallas and the speed that you're going to see. So, no, I'm feeling good about it. I feel better about this game now than I did maybe 2 weeks ago, but it's going to be close. If they're going to win, it's going to be close.
I don't feel good about it. I just don't. But whatever. It doesn't. It's I kind of played this out in my head early. I got to let some of that stuff go, but I don't love the matchups. I don't love being on the road here, but it's really all you can ask for. I mean, they hold their fate in their own hands. So it's good. It's good from that regard. No,
you're right. It could be an absolute massacre. We'll see. I don't know. I don't have anything else though. I mean, I'm excited about it. This game was more so about celebrating, obviously Cowboy preview, but this game was more so about celebrating an NFC North title. Because the rest of the games just don't matter anymore. We did what we needed to do.
Yeah. And it's everything else is gravy. Like, I mean, you don't want to have that perspective if you're a Lions player, like, oh, we're done. No, you're not done. But for fans of the team, I mean, this is a huge step. Huge step. It's awesome. Super cool to see.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. This was great though. We did the playoff scenarios. We jumped into the Cowboy stuff. We recapped. We had our player of the week as well. So, I mean, you got anything else for me?
Nope, we're good.
Sweet. Well, again, you guys can follow us on X or Twitter at Russ NFL Draft, at Bischoff_Scott. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the Detroit Lions podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other podcast platforms. This was great. I'm glad we were able to do this. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. We'll be back next week talking Lions, Cowboys recap, and then we'll preview the Vikings one more time before we get into the playoffs. So until next time, this is Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions podcast.